I'm an introvert, but when I'm asked to speak on behalf of the natural world, words just come. And I don't feel like it's necessarily me. It's not my ego. It's just what's the truth of what needs to happen. And so I want to leave a clean planet. I want to leave hope for my children. I want my children to not have to think about having clean air or clean food or clean water. Just these baselines of life that we are suddenly having to think about.
A movement is underway of people abandoning the emotional, physical, and financial expenses of city living and crafting their own purpose, livelihoods, and joy in the rural reaches. The Urban Exodus podcast shares the wisdom, wit, and stories of those who decided to embark on the road less traveled to pursue their own interpretation of the good life. Small business owners, change makers, artists, farmers, and more, working towards building a better future for themselves and their fellow citizens. This podcast is for country dreamers, rural folk, and urban dwellers alike who want to feel more connected to the natural world and the purpose and choices in their lives. I'm Melissa Hessler. Welcome to the Urban Exodus. I'm excited to invite you to my conversation with Franchesca Duval, the environmentalist and backyard poultry farmer behind Alchemist Farm. Franchesca's love of chickens began at a young age. After planting roots on 3 acres of land in Sebastopol, California, she finally realized her dream of having her own backyard flock. When she started researching the best hatcheries to get chicks from, she was horrified to learn that the standard practice was to kill all of the male chicks. Franchesca decided to build her own humane hatchery, offering birds with wonderful temperaments and beautiful eggs. She started with an incubator in her bathtub, and in under a decade, she has built a successful, nationally recognized hatchery business. For Franchesca, her sustainable small business journey hasn't been focused on financial success. Her primary goal is to make a positive impact in the world. All right. So first off, Franchesca, I just wanted to say it's a pleasure to speak with you today. I toured your farm. Let's see. When was that now? I feel like the pandemic has created this kind of like time warp.
Totally.
It was January of 2020, I think.
Yeah, it was early. It was before there was whisperings of COVID, but it hadn't quite fully landed here.
Yes. Wow. What a journey it has been. Well, first off, let's just start at the beginning of your story. Can you tell me a little bit about your personal backstory and how you got started in backyard poultry?
It was a really interesting, long, circuitous journey that ended up landing me here, which I'm sure a lot of people tell you, it wasn't just this straight shot of always knowing this is what they were going to do. But my background is in psychology, and I love people, I love animals, I love the planet. And when I was looking at graduate schools, I was trying my hardest to find the right mix of things, and nothing was quite landing after I had graduated with my BA in psych. And so I started studying fertility and midwifery and was on the path to become a midwife because there was something about working with life that felt so powerful to me. And I always wanted to be able to look at my hands and know that what I was contributing to the world was something positive. And I felt like a midwife's hands are holy almost, helping folks. And when I was on that path, I could see that it was not sustainable to have a family and be a midwife. Like when you're a midwife to everyone. So I thought, okay, like this isn't it. But there was something with birth and life and fertility. And my husband and I were living in a small spot and knew that we wanted a little more land and found our current farm in our same town of Sebastopol 7 years ago and just jumped on it. And I always had chickens in my life. But when we had more space, then I was able to really expand that. And I felt this love deep inside of me, particularly for chickens. And one thing led to another. And as I was ordering birds, I was researching hatcheries I wanted to order the birds from. And I really wanted fun egg laying birds. And I started to realize what the hatcheries were doing and their practices specifically around the killing of male chicks. 50-50, there's males and females in every hatch, and 50% of the chicks that they hatch get killed upon hatch. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't support that. And there was something so deep in my heart where I just knew, like, this is something that's important. And if it's important to me, it could be important to other people too. And so I decided to hatch my own. And it started with just a small little humble incubator in my bathroom and with a little tote and like 6 chicks, like something so small. And just in a couple years' time, I expanded into many different breeds and researching really deeply on things and temperament and egg color. And suddenly I found myself running this full-on chicken hatchery. And so this nexus of like fertility and giving something positive to the world and psychology, because customer service, that's a big
Absolutely.
It's a great thing to have a BA in psych for.
Absolutely.
So it all kind of clicked and came together. And whenever we're making business decisions as a farm, it's never just about the money. It's about the positive impact that we can be making. And it just feeds my heart. So I guess it's a really long-winded answer of how did it all begin. It was just really organic in how I ended up here.
It was kind of that aha moment when all of the things that you were passionate about kind of came together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When did you decide to build the farm, and what is the significance of the name?
The name was my husband's. He always had it with him. He would dub himself the alchemist of this or the alchemist of that, because he's really good at turning something into another thing. His family, he grew up in Ohio, and they were of that generation and that mindset, old farming roots there, where you purchase things that are going to last and you take good care of them. He had a bike from the time he was like a teenager till, well, not really, like junior high until adulthood. And he just kept like modifying it because he just didn't want to throw it away and buy something new. And so he's always turning something into something else. And it felt really appropriate for what we're doing with the animals. Here we're turning the soil into pastures, the pastures into food for the chickens lay eggs, those eggs get turned into chicks. Any fertilizer that's left behind from the chickens goes back into the soil for more pastures. So there's this big cycle of things being turned into something else here. And also what we're hoping to accomplish with the greater poultry industry of showing that there is a transformation that can happen, because chickens per capita are the most abused animal in the world when you think about meat and egg production in these mega warehouses, which, I mean, population of the world is really big. We need to support it somehow, but I know that there is a way to still support our food systems and take better care of these birds. And so the greater global picture is an alchemy and becoming alchemists of change for that industry as well. So it's a small like microcosm change in our soil, as well as business change, heart change. People who see what we do get really inspired on a lot of ecological levels. So it just feels like an appropriate name and an invitation for anybody who wants to make changes in their life.
I know that environmental activism is deep at the core of everything that you do. Can you talk about the steps that you've taken to operate on a zero waste model, both on a personal and on a business level?
Yeah. So what even is zero waste? Like someone who's listening to this might be like, what? What are you talking about? Like, there are some people out there who don't own trash cans. They are so aware of what they consume on a daily basis that I'm sure it was very challenging at first to put those systems into place, but eventually it becomes easy. You just only buy certain things like from the bulk bins or supporting your local farmers to pick up different things that's not packaged in plastic. And so they live without trash cans. And that's a really incredible benchmark, because so many of us are just blind to our own waste. We throw things in a trash can, probably under our like kitchen sink. We take it out to the bigger trash can, it gets wheeled to the curb, and it's put away, taken away and picked up. And we just don't think about that away. And if we all visited the landfill, I think it would break a lot of people's hearts to realize, like, this is what I'm doing. But so many of us are kind of like hypnotized by this pattern of consumption. Like we're living our busy lives and working and trying to do well in our businesses, trying to do well for our kids, and just consuming at a rate that most of us don't even realize it is a problem. And it's a pretty recent problem, right? It's an early generation problem. Our great-grandparents didn't have this going on, but the single-use plastic thing is a big deal. So that's a kind of brief little overview of what zero waste aims to do, which is put nothing in a trash can. And so as a business, we look at all of our packaging, and we used to ship a lot of chicken hatching eggs, and we would receive a lot of chicken hatching eggs from different farms, and it would all be wrapped in bubble wrap plastic, and then more styrofoam in there, more plastic. And it was essentially just a box of trash that would come to us with the precious cargo of eggs in there. And I knew that I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to just be shipping trash to people's doorsteps. Like, there is a way to still like ship things around without having plastic involved. And so we tried all sorts of things. And really, it's just fumbling, but with a passion in your heart and some creativity and just trying to find solutions, because with every problem, it's just an invitation for a solution. And so as opposed to feeling overwhelmed or anxious or sad about the problems that we see, I just try and look at them and take a deep breath and go, okay, like, there's a lot of plastic around. I don't want to contribute to that. What can we do? And so digging for things. We tried popcorn in our shipping boxes, and that was a disaster. So that was a fail. And then we finally landed on some shavings that go inside the brooders for baby chicks. It's this special little cedar pine wood shavings that you can put into a brooder for baby chicks. And we pack our eggs in that. And so if people don't have baby chicks, they can put them in the garden. And we put a special little note inside talking about how the package is completely compostable. And someone might get that note and say, what's compost? You know, it's just not even in their consciousness. And so it's great to kind of put these little love notes of possibility out there. And I've had people write back to me and be like, I never even thought about the amount of trash I was putting in my trash can. Thank you. And it's always an invitation and never a judgment or a, you should do this, you should change this. I'm always looking at myself and our business and our farm first and being like, okay, how can we be a model? Can we keep it inspiring so that people see this as a possibility too? So everything that we ship out into the world can be flattened and put into a garden. And I think that's a really powerful witness for other folks. So that's one way that we've worked on being zero waste, and everything that we do here on the farm, it just kind of stays on the farm. We compost everything that we have. So we're just not putting it into a trash can on the business front, which feels really, really good.
Absolutely. I love that. Love notes of possibility. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. Invitations, no judgment, just invitation.
What is your advice for other businesses who want to work towards a more zero waste model, but they're worried about their bottom line? Have you seen that as like a really cost prohibitive thing? Or as you started to find those solutions, you found a way that it makes it easy?
Yeah, so it definitely is more expensive. And the power of just putting, a stake in the sand somewhere and saying, no, I'm just not going to support this anymore. It's a valuable thing to do because it starts aligning your values as a business. There are billions of businesses out here on planet Earth and billions of different types of consumers. And when you start to put your time and effort, when we start to put our time and effort into being ecologically conscious and treating our birds with the utmost respect, people came out of the woodwork to support us, even though our prices are higher than like a large-scale hatchery. Our prices are sometimes 4 or 5 times higher than a large-scale hatchery, but people just don't care. They want to support what's right, and they see what it is. So a big change for us was we package up quail eggs for eating, and they go to restaurants and grocery stores and things like that. And the only thing that we could ever find was plastic clamshells. And it was, again, like, they're so cheap. They were like 2 cents a piece, easy to get here in the United States. They're manufactured like crazy here. And I just kept looking at it being like, I don't feel good about this. Every time I would touch the plastic, I just knew it couldn't be recycled. This just isn't correct. This isn't what I want to leave my children. And so I dug for a long time to find the little recycled pulp like you get at the grocery store for eggs. It's, the like recycled cardboard. Now I have that for our quail eggs. It's 25 cents a carton. That's a huge jump. But again, people want to support it because they see that we've gone that extra distance. And so we are attracting those customers that are helping support our model and hopefully showing other businesses that, hey, if you get on board, like, people will support it. And it's not a marketing thing. It's not greenwashing. I'm not doing it like to get extra business. It's just a function of what we want to offer the world. And then the world says yes back because it's right. And when you're offering something that's real and that's right, and it's from the heart, people are attracted to that.
This episode is brought to you by Hessler Creative, a creative photography duo offering conceptualized brand content and in-person and online workshops. Hire us for elevated photos and videos to help your business rise above the noise and expand your customer reach. Or you can join us for an online or destination photography workshop. Explore new places, learn new techniques, and elevate your creative work. Learn more about our workshops and our commercial photography services by visiting HesslerCreative.com or click the collaborations button on urbanexodus.com. What are your favorite chicken breeds? Let's talk about that. I know that you are just passionate about birds and chicken, and you've done so much research, and you teach chicken keeping courses as part of Alchemist Farm. What chicken breeds just really speak to you?
There's hundreds of breeds out there, and we've only chosen 13 to work with because of our space, my husband's sanity. we wanted to have really dynamic, fun, different things because I feel like there's a breed for everybody out there, kind of like there's a breed of dog or chicken or dog or cat for everybody out there. And some people might look at me and be like, come on, like a chicken? No way. Like they don't have different personalities, but I swear to you, they do. And they are smart. And they'll come running, and they know my face, and they know where I'm going to go in the yard and what kind of grain I'm going to throw. And they're lovely. So if I had to choose one breed of chicken for that's like my top crowning glory chicken, it would probably be our Cerama, which is the world's smallest chicken breed. And I just love them because of the sounds they make. And they're so cute. They're no larger than, a little can of soda. They're so small they can't do damage in the garden. And we have a lot of people in elderly care facilities that have them as part of their program for enrichment of folks who can't get out of bed, or people who have Alzheimer's. They go and they just collect the same chicken eggs, over and over, and it brings them a lot of joy outside. And the Cerama don't need a lot of upkeep. They're just really sweet. So if I could only have one, that would be my one. But each of them have their incredible virtues.
What if you could have like 5? What would be your top 5?
Oh, it's asking me to choose my favorite children.
I know.
It's like I lean in and whisper into the microphone.
I know. You're like, they're listening to me.
They are. The ones I don't pick are going to stop laying.
Yeah.
You don't love me anymore. Definitely the French black copper Morans, because they lay that chocolate dark egg, and they have even nice keeled temperaments. All of our birds here have really sweet temperaments. There are some stinkers out there, and we don't work with those breeds because everyone has those stories of going out to the barnyard and getting attacked by the rooster. And I don't want to perpetuate that. I want people to be able to go outside, feel fully engaged with nature, enjoy their birds, because if they're enjoying their birds, they're taking better care of them. The birds are happy. They're laying more eggs. It's this beautiful circle. So even keeled temperament is like number one with all our breeds. Morans for their dark chocolate eggs. The Cerama, like I mentioned before, Silkies are really, really sweet. They're like this designer frou-frou looking bird, like the teacup poodle of the chicken world. But I'm telling you, they're so sweet. And the customers who pick them up here from the farm are never the people you'd expect. It's like these giant dudes in lifted trucks who come. They're like, how many Silkies you got? I want them all. Like they want these like designer cute chickens. So they're just really sweet. They're great with children. I love our Welsumers because they're just this understated heritage breed that just lays and lays and lays, and they just do what you want them to do. They're smart. They know how to find their coop every night when you put new birds into the mix. And definitely our double silver lace Barnevelders. When I saw those birds for the first time, oh man, my it's real nerdy sounding, but my like chicken lover heart jumped. That's the most beautiful bird. When you get hit with chicken fever, this is like a real thing. Like I had it. It was like this chicken math fever. I would stay up till like 3 and 4 researching. My husband would be like, babe, like, what are you doing? Like, you just, why are you looking at these chickens? I'm like, I don't know what it is. I need them in my life. And now I understand, like, chickens are this gateway to this incredible lifestyle that gently invites you to compost, have a garden, not throw away your food scraps in the trash can, but give them to the birds. You keep all this stuff out of the landfill. They harken back to this time that we've lost, this slower life where we are creating our own food. We are going into our yard to gather what we've grown or what the birds have laid. And I mean, early explorers, they would bring seeds and chickens. Like chickens have always been this like human companion. You hear about dogs, but not chickens. Like they've been the thing we've carried around.
Yeah, they don't get the credit that they deserve.
No.
How did you go about funding the startup costs associated with getting your farm up and running? Or was it kind of just a slow build over time?
Such a painfully slow build. Like slow build. My first like real serious investment in hatching eggs was a birthday present, the combined birthday present from my dad and my sister. And that's what got me started. Them being like, really? You want hatching eggs for your birthday? And I was like, yes, from this breed. Like, I want these because you want to start with the best stock possible. You don't want to work with like birds that aren't that great and try and like build them up. So having that first investment was huge. And I, again, started with one humble little incubator in our bathroom and a tote. And now we're up to 300 birds and, 13 different breeding groups and many incubators and shipping nationwide. It just started very, very humbly and very small, and I just constantly reinvested. And it took a while. It took 5 years before we were cash positive. 5 years, and a lot of my husband being like, are you sure about this? And I'd be like, yes, like, let's just keep going. And I just kept reinvesting in the infrastructure to have silos so we didn't have the plastic bags. We could have the bulk grain delivered and the coops that were going to last longer, and just doing the best we could with the materials we had. So it did take the 5 years before we could become profitable.
That's good to hear, because I think that it can be really discouraging in the beginning stages of a business, especially if you're kind of creating something that's new for the market, to feel like, is this going to work? When is it going to work?
Yep, I have a lot of gray hair, but it's like it's earned, and now I've got smile lines too. So I've got it both from the birds.
That's beautiful. The pandemic has inspired a run on chicks. How did you navigate this increase in demand paired with the shipping delays that the pandemic also created?
It was really tricky. For the first time, we've been shipping for 7 years. And for the first time last year, shipments weren't making it. And it was heartbreaking because our whole focus is to be pioneers of humane treatment of chickens. And so if we're shipping birds and they're not making it, how can I consciously put more birds in the mail? And so what I did was talk really carefully with our postmaster and see what hubs were being affected by COVID, why they were being affected, and then just stop shipping into those areas, because certain areas were safe and they were okay and others weren't for many different internal reasons of the USPS. Certain states where people weren't compliant in wearing their masks, other states where people just weren't showing up to work, or just a whole mire of things. And it's been a journey, and it's led me to thinking this year about restructuring how we interact with the rest of the United States and what we offer. And we'll see. We'll see if things smooth out with the USPS or not, because I definitely want to keep the well-being of the birds in the forefront of my mind.
What advice would you give to someone who's interested in raising chickens, but they're hesitant because the learning curve, the time, and the infrastructure investment?
I think that it's good to be hesitant because it means that you care, and it means that you want to do right by the animals. A lot of people do just jump right in with all sorts of animals in the category of livestock or pets, and they're not prepared. So doing your research is really helpful. We have a lot of resources on our Instagram or our Facebook website for beginning chicken keepers. We also have like streaming classes to get your feet wet. And I really recommend taking some sort of a beginner class, because there's so much information out there on the internet that you could drive yourself nuts with all the contraindicating information. But if you're just wanting to stick with, one person who you trust and their model of how they're working with the birds, I think that's a better way to do it. Whether it's me or someone else, just choose someone's path and follow that.
That's really great advice. Yeah, you can really go down a chicken black hole. I have done it many times.
There's just so much.
There's so much out there, and everybody has different ways of doing things and different things that feel comfortable for them, as far as like number of times that they clean the coop and the types of grains that they feed. And some people don't feed their chickens any grains. They just feed them forage and scraps. So I think that's great advice. Choose someone and follow that path if it feels right.
Follow the path of someone who's in your same kind of climate and with the same kind of space restrictions. Because, if you have this beautiful idea of fermenting grain, but you're raising chickens like on a stoop, like it's just not going to work. So you have to make sure that you're like doing it realistic and not beating yourself up because you don't have 500 acres to play with.
If you could go back to the early days of Alchemist Farm, are there any things you wish you would have known or done differently?
I think I would just tell myself to have more patience with myself and that it's a marathon and not a race, and to get a little more sleep. And it's okay to not answer every customer service email within an hour. I was really like wanting to be so communicative with people and so like going above and beyond what I think any normal establishment would do. And I really prided myself on that, but I paid a price for not being as present with my family as I could have been, and setting those healthy boundaries, which are still okay. Like I felt like I didn't want to let my customers down. A great example was when I was pregnant with my second child. He's 4 now. While I was in labor, I was packing up that week's orders. And my husband, I was like pretty far along. And my husband came in. He's like, "Am I okay to drive these to the post office?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen yet." And I'm like pacing around the house, and he's like driving away with all these chicks and not feeling great about leaving me home. We were doing a home birth, but still he's like, not wanting to abandon me. But that's just an example of like how much this business is us and is me, and how much we've given to it, and how it's okay to also have those chick shipments be a week late because people would have been okay with it knowing that I was in labor. But I didn't give myself that permission that it was okay. And I'm still finding that now with our social media outreach and the customer service stuff, and just setting up those, it's okay to have some family time too. And people can maybe wait an extra hour, and it's not disrespectful to them. Just letting that be okay. It's really hard for me.
That's really good advice and stuff that I think a lot of small business owners feel. I certainly feel that as a working mom who has a home-based business. Because you're a home-based business, how have you structured your days so that you can balance and kind of shift between work life and home life? Do you have any suggestions for people to kind of set up those boundaries?
It is so tricky, and it's so different for every family. And depending on what the dynamic is of the age of the kids, where both spouses doing, and if they can set up that time. What was really useful before the pandemic was that I would actually leave the house and I would just go to a coffee shop in town and do my customer service work there, because I knew I was somewhere else. I could focus, caffeinate a little, and the kids wouldn't feel like I was just abandoning them for a screen. Now I try, and my daughter she's 8 and does her Zoom classes. We're still doing distance learning. And so while she's doing her Zoom classes, then I just do my work, and we're just all kind of plugged in together. And then my younger guy's outside working the tractor with my husband. So it honestly changes constantly, and just trying to have that flexibility and that honesty as a couple, if you're married, or as a single person with your children, of what's working and what's not. Because for us, it changes weekly based on our schedules and what the needs are of the farm, and constantly having that communication of like, okay, Mama's going to be working right now. This is what we're doing. Please give her some space, and keeping that commitment to myself and my children of, I will be done in 3 hours and I will come out and be present with you. My phone will be set down. I'm not going to be looking at Instagram or posting things or answering customer service emails is a really powerful practice. And it still tugs at my heart because I just don't want to let people down. I'm a Pisces. I'm like empathetic.
You're speaking my language because we have the same birthday. So everything that you're saying is resonating with me.
Totally. Right? Like you're my soul sister, It's like, how do you balance all these things? And I guess that's just part of the lifelong journey. And every time that I've worked towards finding that balance and just being really honest with, hey, I'm feeling anxious because there's a lot of customer service stuff to do. My husband's like, great. Okay. Take 3 hours, and whatever I can't get done in those 3 hours just has to wait, and it can wait till the next day. So just trying to set up times and then just putting the screen or the phone away has been really powerful.
This season of the Urban Exodus podcast is brought to you by Jake.art. Bring the beauty of the outdoors in. A new online art shop brought to you by Urban Exodus. Search our collection of affordable, high-quality fine art prints and illustrations by color or theme to find just the right work for your home or office. Or commission us to do a custom illustration or photograph of a loved one. Visit jake.art, that's JAKE.ART, or click the shop button on urbanexodus.com. Like, how many hours a day would you say that you spend on your business? Is it really like a 40-hour week? Is it beyond at this point?
Yeah. So beyond. This has been the year where we've really tried to just streamline things. And my husband's a really good methods guy. I'm more just like, let's just intuitively do this and see where it leads. And he's like, whoa, girl, we need to set up a system because your systems have a lot of leaks in them. And I'm humble enough to be like, yes, they do. Here, come help me. And so he would literally stand over my shoulder and watch what I was doing and be like, oh, babe, we can streamline that. And so before things were streamlined, I was probably spending 10 hours a day, every day on our business. And that was between customer service stuff, working with the birds, setting eggs, sorting chicks, packing up shipments, whatever it may be. Easy 10 hours a day. And my days would normally start at 4 a.m. because I'd try and get some stuff done before the kids would wake up. So I'd get 3 hours of customer service in there and then into the night after I put them to bed. And that works for a good 6 months when you're caffeinating and you're just trying to get it done. And then after that time, I was wrecked and it just isn't sustainable. Now, with things being more streamlined, it's more like 4 hours a day on the computer and then 2 hours doing whatever it may be with the birds, collecting eggs or sorting things and streamlining things. So just about 6 hours a day.
It's wonderful to have a partner that will help you streamline those things. I think that a lot of people, they have this dream of building something with their partner or building something from home. And it really takes a lot of communication and a lot of compromise too, especially if you have kids.
Oh, yeah.
You use Instagram as a way to connect and build your customer base. What tips do you have for other small, rurally based businesses who want to leverage social media to build their customer base and tell their story?
It's really useful. It is definitely the main means in which we communicate with the world because what we do is so visual. So if you have something that's a very visually rich offering for the world, then Instagram is a really great option and outlet because it's beautiful and it's images that flash kind of quick by as you're sliding by on the phone. And luckily our birds are beautiful and the eggs they lay are gorgeous. So people stop and they click. But what I've also found is that there's a lot of positive aspects to it because it's free marketing, but it's also not free because it's your time. And so you need to value your time as well with it. So if you do use some sort of social media, choose the platform that's right for you. If it's either Facebook or Instagram or, TikTok, Snapchat, all these other things out there, you can do some research to see what it is and be honest with yourself if you're going to be able to upkeep it because it is like a whole different relationship. Once you start with that does need to be nurtured if you want the algorithm to show your post to anybody. So it is a lot of work, and that's a large part of my work day is getting information out that way. So it was very helpful for us. And I'm also realizing now, not to like throw the pun out there too much, but it's like all my eggs are in one basket and in Instagram. And so I'm definitely wanting to like spread it out a little bit.
You got to get on TikTok.
Yeah, right.
It's a content monster, right? Exactly like what you're saying. It's such a helpful marketing tool, especially for businesses that are kind of out of the way, but they have a, national customer base. But you always have to feed the beast, and that can become a real burden for, especially if you're running a business by yourself or a very small team.
Yes, everything we do here is just me and my husband. And like we'll have people come in and out throughout the year sometimes to help us collect eggs in the night or something like that. But it's really small. And so what has been useful with using social media is being really clear what's not for sale in our lives and what we won't do. And what I've seen a lot of people do, and the mistakes they've made, is they start to sell parts of themselves or their family that just to try and get that content out and to create more content, and they start losing themselves, and it's just not useful. Like there's no photos of my children's faces on Instagram. My kids aren't for sale. Like I'm not doing that. You'll never see me in like a bathing suit on Instagram. I am not for sale. Like it's my chickens, and the information I'm happy to share. Like we are really educational and everything, that because we want the world to be as in love with birds as we are. So being really careful about what is and isn't for sale will be helpful when you're starting to reach out.
So you have seen exponential growth since starting your business. Is there a level of sustainable growth that you don't want to grow beyond, or are you open to expanding as your demand continues to grow?
We are at max capacity right now for what our land can carry in terms of birds. Like there's plenty of models where you would just throw, 30 more birds in that pasture, and then we could up our production by so much. And then suddenly it's not a great situation for the animals. So we are at carrying capacity for the land of what we feel comfortable with for our pastures, the health of our birds. So as long as we stay here on this land, this is as big as we will grow. And it feels good where we're at, the amount of work that it is, the amount of income we're able to generate, the amount that we're able to donate from that, because a lot of what we make proceeds also go to different organizations that we want to support. So that feels important to me. So I don't think that we're going to grow more here, but I have had this dream of connecting with different poultry farmers across the United States to create some sort of co-op that has the same model as us, so we could refer other people to, because shipping has just been so challenging with the USPS. It shows me how unstable things have been. And the USPS is this like silent business partner for us. Like I worked so hard to create birds that are beautiful, have sweet temperament and clean genetics to offer out to the world. So much work goes into creating a single chick here, so much thought, and the packaging. And I drop it off at the USPS with this like hope in my heart. And when it doesn't make it to its destination because it was delayed by 5 or 6 days, like I've had some shipments happen this year, it makes me rethink like, okay, there are certain parts of the US I can no longer reach. And so I have to change my model. And I wonder if there's farmers over there that would want to, join this network of like, hey, you help people in your surrounding states, refer people in the surrounding states near me so the chicks aren't shipping as far, but we're still trying to create that greater change in the poultry industry. So I don't see myself growing, but I see empowering other farmers to do something similar because it's so needed, and we could do it regionally and it could be really beautiful.
Brilliant idea. Have you spoken to any farmers yet that have shown any interest in this idea?
There's been a few. I had this really on my heart this last month, and there's a couple people who I've met through Instagram. Like, Instagram can be hard.
It's a great tool.
Yes, it can be challenging. It can also be good, and everything's like that in life. It's just about your outlook. Like, what are you going to see in the pile in front of you? Hopefully, it's the beautiful things. So I've met amazing people on Instagram, and there are 2 farmers in particular who in the United States, there's one in Canada. She's rocking it. She's taken our model and she's doing it up there. And I don't feel upset or weird that she's like doing what we're doing. I think it's good because we need that. And there's some other people that are kind of similar but doing something different. And I reached out to them. I was like, what do you guys think? And they're like, I don't know. Let's keep talking about it, because it's weird almost to reach out to competition and offer like this new business model or this different proposal, but I don't see other farmers as competition. I see them as allies in this journey of changing what is happening in the poultry industry to create something better. The more people doing it, the more lights there are out there in this sea of incredible darkness of how these birds are treated.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that you are based in Sebastopol, and you've had some really close calls with the California wildfires. And now they call it wildfire season, which as a native Californian myself, it's just wild to me because we never really had a designated fire season. And so I was just wondering what other effects of climate change you've really noticed, and if you're reconsidering living in California for the long term.
Absolutely. It comes up for us every year. That fire season you mentioned used to be fall. I lived in California. I've been here my whole life. I'm living currently 2 hours north of where I was born. So it's 36 years here. And for the past 4 years, our area of Northern California burns, and it burns for a long time. In the fall, for months, there's smoke where we just can't go outside. We can't let our kids go outside and play without masks. This was all pre-COVID, right? Like we were prepared with our masks already because of the wildfires. And thank God they haven't gotten immediately close to our farm. They're always surrounding us, and we're, a handful of miles away, but they do creep closer every year. So for peace of mind, we just have really good insurance. We are not able to evacuate every single one of the birds here because we're part of the National Poultry Improvement Plan, where all of the birds are tested free of diseases. And so if we were to move all of our birds to, say, the close fairgrounds, which is an evacuation point, which I don't even know how you move this amount of birds. And then when you get them over there, they're being kept with all other birds and animals from farms everywhere else, where they're just swapping all sorts of different possible diseases. And we can't bring them back here and still be part of our program. So it's just this it's an absolute nightmare. And so we've just been, very fortunate that we haven't had to try and evacuate the animals. The fire hasn't gotten that close, but it does get closer every year. And so we do look at other states, and we do think about relocating, but we would only relocate if everything burned. We're really clear on that California is our home and we want to stick it out. And as opposed to just running from the realities of climate change, which is such a hot button topic, there's so many people out there that get so upset when they hear climate change and they just think it's this democratic agenda. But honestly, if we could just take politics out of it and just know that at the end of the day, we just need to be taking better care of planet Earth. It doesn't matter where we live on planet Earth or what our political leanings are, what faith we have, especially if someone is a Christian. It's how can you not care for God's creation? I'm a Christian. How can I call myself a Christian and not care for this amazing garden that we've been given? Anybody who in their heart's nope, I don't want to care for that. It's whoa, you got to be looking in your heart, really seeing what's in there to align yourself properly. California is our home. We are looking at climate change face on because we know it's here. We know our climate's shifting. It is hot in the summer. We cannot breed certain breeds of chickens. We've stopped certain breeding programs because it gets too hot and they suffer. And I'm not going to have suffering on my farm just because I want a certain breed that's beautiful. We installed this last year a huge solar array that is another post in the sand of no, we're not just going to run. We're going to fight this head on of we were part of the problem because we were buying energy that wasn't 100% perfect. It was generated somewhere else and it was clean, but it wasn't here on our property. So now we can run everything, our incubators, our lights, the whole operation, our home on the sun. And that feels clean. That feels good. So anything we can do to be part of the change and to inspire other people to care for this beautiful planet we are on, we do. And if it all goes, then that is the way that it was supposed to be. And we will relocate somewhere else and try again and just continue holding that light again of let's care for what we have.
It has to just be so stressful, though, to have all of these animals that you care for and knowing that, if a fire does come through, you can only take what you can load into your car, or that's trauma. That's just repeated trauma over and over again. It's really hard. It's hard to watch from afar, quite honestly, as a native Californian, because it just kind of breaks my heart to see this pattern, this reoccurring pattern that I don't think is going to go away. But
no, it's a really powerful reminder of our mortality. When we're young and we're not right on death's door, we don't think about it so much. But when every single year you're faced with the reality of, oh, everything I've built, like my home, my business could be just taken away. My life could be taken away if I didn't evacuate properly. It's just a really powerful reminder of how finite our time is here, how important it is to use our time wisely. And it is very honestly triggering and very, very challenging to live in it. But running away from it also feels like we can't be a voice for what's happening. Do I want this trauma? No. Do I wish I was somewhere else? Some days, yes. But we also have a really incredible community here that really supports each other through every fire event. We love our church here. We love our friends. And so it would be absolutely devastating to leave. But if it's what happens, then we'll face that, and it'll be another alchemy moment. We'll change into something else.
What legacy do you want to leave behind for your kids and for future generations?
I think about that with everything we do as a business. I think about it with everything I do as a person. Like, is what I'm doing of service? Is this just self-serving? Or is this something that I'm wanting to give? And maybe is it something that's just wanting to speak through me? It's not even me. Like, so much of what I offer, like I'm a shy person actually who's like, I'm an introvert. But when I'm asked to speak on behalf of the natural world, words just come. And I don't feel like it's necessarily me. It's not my ego. It's just what's the truth of what needs to happen. And so I want to leave a clean planet. I want to leave hope for my children. I want my children to not have to think about having clean air or clean food or clean water. Just these baselines of life that we are suddenly having to think about. It's really eye-opening. So many of us have just been blind to it, or it feels so overwhelming that we just have to shut it out. And it's just easier to plug into Netflix and watch something and just numb out. I think it's okay to feel despair for a moment and to feel the sadness of what's happening on planet Earth, and to, in those depths, know that that is the call to make some changes, and then just make a change. Start with one. It could be anything. Like, maybe you want to make less trash. Maybe you want to consume less clothing. Maybe you still wear clothes, but don't buy new clothing all the time. Maybe you want to support a local farmer. Maybe you want to spend more conscious time with your kids and not be plugging them into some device, which I know is hard because it's right there, and they want it. And we want the free time, but there's so many ways that we can reshape the life we want, and in a way that is inspiring without fear, inspire that positive change with our children and show our children what's possible. So I want to leave my kids clean air, food, and water, and the possibility of the lives that they want, and that they don't need to consume so much to have a happy life. Like, I really want to free them of that shackle that they are not enough, that I was fed when I was younger, this 80s generation of you gotta have X, Y, Z. We don't need it. And this isn't some wear a burlap sack and don't brush your hair. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying know that you right now listening to this, whoever you are listening to this conversation, you are enough and you don't need all of that. And when we just slow it down for a moment and take a deep breath and feel into our hearts that we are enough, we realize we don't need to buy all these things that we're just going to throw away. We don't need to work extra hard to make all this extra money just to buy these things that we're going to throw away. We can have more spaciousness. We can have more time. We can be present with the people around us. We can have fulfilling lives. Just take that deep breath, know that you're enough, and start to make some changes.
Have you gotten your first vaccine yet? Are your kids going to be going back to school in the fall? What are your plans for the summer as we come out of this pandemic?
Well, it's a really interesting thing. It's so easy for me to just hunker down on the farm and not be part of the world at all because there's so much space here. I'm finding myself a wee bit socially awkward, like coming out into the world. And I thought my children would too, but no way. They're just like in the swing of things, wanting to see people. And we're just being really careful with that. We started to go back to church for being outside. They have special speakers where you can go outside and listen to the services. And that's been really good for us to just actually be there and with other human beings and see them. I'm like, oh yes, there are other humans on planet Earth. Here we are. Because I'm a farm worker and we sell, eggs for eating to restaurants and grocery stores and things like that, I was able to get my first dose of the vaccine a couple of weeks ago as an agricultural worker here in California. And, there's so much around it, so much energy around whether to vaccinate or not. And when I sat down to get my vaccine, I looked at the nurse and I said, I'm so nervous. And she said, you and every other person who sits in this chair, because there's just so much energy around it. And I was like, yeah, like what, like positive, negative, so much. And I have it in my veins and I haven't grown a unicorn horn or a fifth eye. And I really feel okay. I'm a very energetic, sensitive person. And all that I felt when I laid down that night was these waves of like this rearranging in my body and this relief that, okay, this isn't some weird thing. I'm not going to turn into a cyborg. This really is going to help. And if I was that 1 in a billion person who caught the virus and it mutated into a form that couldn't be vaccinated for later, or it became more virulent and it did hurt more people, I could not live with myself. And really just knowing that the ultimate act of loving our neighbor as ourselves in my mind right now is, if you have the ability, get vaccinated, because you're protecting other people who you don't even know and who can't. And it's been a powerful, long journey to be okay with getting the vaccine for me. And I'm happy that I did it. And my children are too young to receive it, but we would love for my son to go back to the possibility of going to preschool, because he's at a formative age. He needs to be around other kids and to learn those soft life skills. And my daughter is starting to do hybrid learning, where for 2 hours a day, 2 days a week, she goes in and into the classroom, and then she does distance learning the rest. And they have masks and pool noodles where they hold on to the pool noodles. They're 6 feet apart. And, the teachers have been so positive and made it something that was sweet, and just kind of normalized it of okay, we're just going to do this. We're going to protect each other. And my daughter was begging me to go to school. I remember last year dropping her off and her being like, I don't want to go to school. And me being like, there's women in other countries who can't go to school. You have no idea how lucky you are. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg and blah, blah, blah. All these women, I'm talking all this. And she's like, yeah, Mom. And this year she was begging me. And I was like, do you feel this? How lucky you are to be able to go. It's amazing that you can go to school. And she says, yes, I want to go to school. And she has this whole different, at 8 years old, whole different investment in her learning, because she sees the value of it. And I'm so grateful that it is an option for us to do this hybrid learning. And they're going real slow. And I have absolute faith in all the systems they've set up.
How much do you appreciate teachers? I mean, I appreciated teachers before, but it's just this whole other appreciation where teachers should get paid as much as lawyers. They should get paid as much as doctors. Yeah.
So important. So hard, the hours they put in, and then the hours they're not paid for. I just don't know how to right that wrong. That's a whole nother can of worms. But yes, we're grateful for teachers and grateful for USPS workers, even though things have been rough with our relationship with them. Yes, like they're out there constantly delivering everyone's mail so we can all stay home. Bless them.
Are there any exciting things on the horizon for you from either a personal or business perspective that you would like to share?
Just listening for what's next. Nothing's ever done here on the farm. We're always evolving things to be cleaner and better and more streamlined. But, I've tackled our packaging. It's done. It's okay, it's all compostable. We've got our clean green energy. We're plastic free. Birds are free ranging. We're humane. None of our males are killed. It's what else can I do? What else can I improve on here? And I'm not seeing it yet. And, maybe I'm blind to something, which is possible, but I'm always wanting to work on something to better what we're offering the earth. And so that's why I was kind of saying that earlier, there might be some other advocacy work or some other way that I could speak or offer these different thoughts out into the world, because we reach a lot of people through, they think they're just ordering chickens, but they have no idea that they're getting this whole other invitation to having a whole different lifestyle that's really sweet and full of possibilities of being a little bit more ecologically conscious. So I'd like to reach more people. And so I'm open to whatever that looks like through our business or no, just to continue to be an encouraging, positive voice for folks, to invite them to make those changes. So whatever that is, I'm opening my heart to that right now.
I think that you are just such an inspiring business owner, such an inspiring person. And when you speak, I really feel your passion. And I don't know, I just really appreciate you. And I started to kind of look into zero waste after I spoke with you and read the books and have made real changes in my life. And you're right, it doesn't take that much. It's just kind of making those really conscious choices. I think with COVID, it's been harder,
yes.
The bulk bins have been closed and they won't let you bring your own bags. And there were all of these things, but it's only made me more excited to go back to those ways, because it's just really acknowledging how much waste you create and facing that and knowing that, if everybody just made some really small changes, it could mean a lot. It could make a really big difference.
It's also a gateway to having our hearts soften to other things, So if you feel for some people, it's just from recycling. They just don't even do, if you start recycling or then you start not buying the things that are recyclable, then your heart is open to other stuff that you can see out there. And maybe you vote differently. Maybe you support different things, and it creates greater, larger changes in the long run too.
Well, I so appreciate you, Franchesca, taking the time to speak with me. And like I said, I didn't realize that we had the exact same birthday until after we had met. But I really mean it when I say I just feel a really deep connection to you. And I support everything that you're doing and bringing into the world. And I just really appreciate that our paths have crossed.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Franchesca Duval. I so appreciate the creative environmental solutions Franchesca has applied to every aspect of her home life and her business. She is constantly improving and making adjustments to be a more mindful consumer and encouraging and teaching others to do the same. Her respect for the planet and all of its creatures that live here is so refreshing. Chickens are arguably the most abused animal on our planet, and Franchesca is dreaming up revolutionary ways to change the industry for the better. I encourage you to support her efforts. If you are interested in learning more about chicken keeping, you can take an online workshop with her, and you can also order chicks and eggs on their website. You can find photos from my visit to her home and hatchery from January of 2020, additional interview responses, a link to her website and Instagram by visiting our blog at urbanexodus.com. I'm going to leave you with an audio postcard that Franchesca sent me after we spoke. After having some extra time to ponder, she wanted to update her response to what 2020 has taught her. And I think it's really important that we all hear this message, absorb it, and take it back out into the world in our own ways.
I've had some more time to reflect on the question of what 2020 has taught me. There's a lot of animals that want to weigh in over here. There's so many possible answers to that question, but I think like the bottom line of 2020 is how precious life is. I think we all know it in our minds that, life's going to move fast and time moves forward. It's not going to move backward, and we will all age. We will all eventually pass away. But there was something about 2020, maybe just the collective awareness of our mortality, that really brought it to the forefront for me. And I really feel life on such a deeper level than I ever did before. I think because of that awareness of mortality. So 2020 taught me a lot about guarding joy and guarding family time and being really aware of where time is given away and where time can be used in hopefully a useful way to make a positive mark on the world, a positive mark for our children and everyone's children moving forward. I think that's why making ecological changes is so near and dear to my heart, because it feels like such a powerful way to pay it forward. We're all just small shining stars that get to shine on planet Earth for such a short period of time, and we really get to choose what we want to illuminate. So 2020 just reminded me of that time doesn't stretch on forever, and to really appreciate what we have and do everything that I can with what I have to be helpful.
Hi, friends. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Urban Exodus podcast. Urban Exodus is a labor of love, and it's only made possible by your generous support. Maybe you just discovered Urban Exodus, or maybe you followed the project for a long time. Either way, please consider supporting my efforts so I can keep this going. The first and easiest way is to click the support button at the top of urbanexodus.com and pledge any amount you like. Second, sponsor an episode of the podcast as a business or individual and get a 20-second ad spot in an upcoming episode. Just click the podcast link on urbanexodus.com to learn more. Third, you can sign up for an in-person or online workshop with me or one of the incredible creative professionals through our workshops at How Hill Farm. Click the workshops page on urbanexodus.com to learn more. Fourth, you can buy something from Jake.art, our new Urban Exodus online shop. A fine art print or wall art for your home or office. A custom illustration or portrait of your family or loved one. There are so many cool things. Just click the shop page to peruse what's available. Lastly, you can hire me to photograph your business or family, or take one of my online or destination workshops. Click the collaborations page on urbanexodus.com to learn more. Another really excellent way to support is to recommend Urban Exodus to your friends and relations. Also by giving a 5-star ratings on iTunes to beat the algorithm and so that we can be more easily searchable. Your continued support will keep this passion project running. I want anyone who feels unfulfilled by career or circumstance to know that they have options and alternatives. All of the work that I do through this project is to encourage people to believe in themselves and to work towards a better future for their community and the planet. Thank you for helping me continue to do this work. You can find Urban Exodus on Instagram and Facebook at The Urban Exodus. To read more in-depth features on folks who ditched the city and went country, visit urbanexodus.com. Until next time, I'm Alyssa Hessler, and this is The Urban Exodus.